Welcome back to the Key and Mang audio experience. I'm your host, Mang, as always, with my fellow co-host, Key. Key, what's good?
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good. Over here thinking it's spring, but Alaska wants to play with me right now. But other than that, I'm chilling. How are you?
I'm good. I went outside, no sweater, no coat today, with my windows down. It was great.
Bless. If I were to try that, I'd be cold. Cold.
You probably end up in the hospital.
Yeah, maybe if I stay out there long enough. Maybe if I stay out there long enough. I don't know. I don't know why I'm surprised. Yesterday or 2 days ago, my driveway was clear. Yesterday, covered in white. And I was like, bruh, it's April 8th. April 9th, and it's still going. And I'm like, yo, this is it's something else. But I don't know why I'm surprised because you never know when you go see snow here in Alaska. You could see it in June, you could see it in October. Like you just never know.
You've seen snow in June?
Yeah, we've got snow in June before.
That is crazy.
I mean, but it didn't
Mm-mm.
stay long. Like it wasn't like heavy, but it was just like it was snowing in June.
But it's still
But
gotta get cold to snow.
yeah, yeah.
That's crazy.
As I
In
said,
June?
you never know. You never know what you're gonna get. You never know what you're gonna get. But on this episode, we're exploring the idea that things we once believed in strongly can change as we age, and how our perspective can shift as we gain more life experience. So, when we're young, we often see the world in black and white and jump to conclusions, but as we age, we begin to understand that there are many shades of gray in between. So, on this episode, we're going to dive into some of our own thoughts and perspectives that have changed over the years, but also invite you to think about what in your thought process has changed as you've gained more life experience. And this topic comes from Key. I think you tweeted about this a couple of days ago, and then you brought this idea up about what things have changed over the years for me. And I was like, oh, honestly, I've never really thought about it, but I thought it was a very thought-provoking question. So I think it's a good thing to get us thinking, but I think it also get everyone who listens to this thinking as well over how their thought process has changed over the years. So, Key, what's something that's changed for you over the years?
So I remember going into PT school and like looking at all the debt I was gonna be in, and I was like, I want to be debt free. When I got out of school, I'm gonna bust my ass and pay my loans off in less than 10 years. And then that tune quickly changed because when I started learning more about like investing and um just different things you can do with your money, I realized that paying off student loans as quick as possible is not, in my opinion, a smart financial move when you can invest into other things that can then bring you more return on investment. Then you can turn around and pay off your loans. But um, when I didn't know as much as I did, I definitely was one of the people who were saying that they're gonna pay the student loans off really quickly, and I'm not. I'm not in a rush anymore at all.
I feel you on that. And this is coming from the fact that I was just saying like you're not loaded with super amounts of money to pay it off like immediately. This is talking like if you're making average salary and you're thinking about how you're gonna repay it back. Because obviously if you have crazy money and you could just pay it off, you would pay it off or pay while you were in school, whatever. But this is not from that perspective. But I had the same perspective. And then you look at I could be paying close to 2 grand a month, and then you think about rent. You think about 2 grand a month for your student loan repayment in 10 years if you went to where I went to school. Then you got rent, you got groceries, you got car, you got your way of life, and that adds up quickly. And healthcare, I think we'll dive into this later, but then at least in our field, you don't get paid what you expect for how much debt you're in. So I think understanding that and understanding there's ways around, not putting all your, you know, half of your income to for the month to just a student loan payment, I think that's something that's changed for me too, because I was under the impression, my dad's always like, you should go get your MD, you should go for more school. I was like, bro, you gonna pay for it? I'm like, cause I'm like, I'm already 180K, 170K in debt, and they go add on another 500. Like, nah, bro. Like, it's not. There's ways to win in the game, but it don't mean you have to go get more schooling to go get it done. So, That's something that I try and talk to him about all the time, but he don't get it. He's always like school, 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 school. So we argue about this all the time. But yeah, that's something I've definitely changed my thoughts on as well on paying back loans.
Yeah, and another thing, now that you like broke down like the monthly payment when you have such high debt like that, when you are putting yourself in that situation, you're more likely to accumulate debt in other areas. And I much rather have student loan debt than like consumer credit card debt, like just
Hmm.
for your lifestyle. So, um, I think it makes more sense that way.
Yeah, it's not like you even taking out extra debt just to like live a life that you want people to see. It's because you need it to survive. And then
Yeah,
you're just going further and further down. It's harder for you to win if you get in more and more debt.
exactly. So, what's your perspective shift? Your first one.
Something that's changed over the years for me is that kids should lift weights or kids should learn to lift. When I was younger, my dad used to be like 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups a day to get strong. Um, and I used to do it, but I used to be mad because I'm like, this is messing up my jump shot. It's going to stop my growth. It's going to like, it's not helping. I didn't see the what it could do for me going down the line. Now I don't think push-ups and sit-ups are the way to. I don't think it's the only way to get strong. But I think teaching kids how to play and how to move early is going to set them up for decreasing their injury risk, having more fun if they're playing sports, because they're healthy, they're able to play. Like I've seen 9-year-olds have ACL tears, get ACL reconstructions, which is crazy to me. And a 9-year-old kid having a big surgery like that, just I think it's important to teach kids how to move, how to lift early to help build better habits for their teen years, their adult years, and they can build a base of strength that is going to be beneficial for decades down the line.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's still like a common perspective amongst people that aren't in like the healthcare field. Like kids shouldn't be like strength training or shouldn't be doing certain activity. They should just be focusing on their sport. Um, but I do think that the earlier you start to introduce kids to movement and like fundamental movement patterns, the better athletes they will be later on. I think sometimes that uh kids are forced to like not forced, but they play like one sport for the whole year and don't really work on like their movement patterns and strengths, and that ends up inhibiting them in the future. And I don't think that like it's not the kids' fault, but parents don't realize that as well. So it's a misconception and a common perspective amongst many people still, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then you hear about some of like these top athletes, and they play baseball, they play football, they play soccer growing up in the season. But now it's like with AAU culture, and at least in basketball, AAU culture, it's a year-round thing. These kids don't get breaks. It's every weekend, 4 games, and then you look at what they're putting into their bodies for nutrition, pretzels and cheese, fries, in and out, whatever is at the location. Recovery is not great, sleep's not great. A lot of factors that are and you're just playing and playing. You don't really have time to explore different patterns, explore different movements, and you keep stressing the same tissue over and over. That's how injuries happen over time. So I think as more people get educated on the importance of variability in sports and movement, I think you're going to find that kids are able to have more fun, enjoy their sports more, and hopefully decrease some of these more serious injuries that are happening to kids younger and younger.
Yeah. And then also I think there is statistics that show that like specializing in a sport before a certain age like doesn't increase your chances of playing in college or playing pro. And I think a lot of times it's not even the kid that wants to play only that sport. It's more so like a parent that had like hoop dreams they didn't fulfill and they're trying to live through their child and they don't really let them get that variability in.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
I agree. I agree.
yeah.
But I think as we learn more and as people our age are becoming parents, and they can start to like impart that wisdom onto their kids and put them into different things. As the information comes out, I think we just have to, as we learn things, we change, and as we get new information, then you obviously want the best for your kids, so you're gonna make sure that you're doing everything that you can to make sure that they have the best chance to succeed.
Yeah, it is definitely gonna change.
hmm what's your second one?
My second one is there's no loyalty in jobs or business, and I don't mean that in like a negative way, like everybody is like doing something shifty or out to get you and all this stuff. But I think like our parents' generation, like they got a job, stuck with the job for however many years, and didn't really have as much movement in between jobs, probably at the same rate as what we do now. And so growing up, I thought that would probably be me. Like I would get a job and then like stay there, but now I see that it's like a two-way street. Like your job also has to benefit you and your long-term interests, and then also if you're like kind of capped at your salary, the only way to make more money is to switch jobs, at least in our field. So don't be afraid to do that. And if something isn't serving you anymore, don't be afraid to leave the situation. It's not
hmm
it's not bad because as soon as you aren't of benefit to the company, they're gonna get rid of you anyway. So you have to kind of like take what you not take what you can, but use it to your benefit. And then if it's not serving you anymore, leave.
And that's something that I saw one of my family members go through. They've been at a company for 16, 17 years maybe. And they've been like they were trying to hit a certain number of years at the company, get their retirement benefits, get all that stuff situated. I think it had to get to 25 years. So they were almost there, but stuff started happening, and it didn't work. It didn't work out, but just seeing how they treat her, and once they started bringing stuff up, and she wasn't vibing with it, she was like, "Yeah, this is wrong." They they that like she started to bounce, and I was like, you've been there 16 years and made a lot of sacrifices, because you could have had the opportunity to jump a lot higher, but because of different responsibilities, couldn't take those opportunities. But you was loyal to the company, and then all of a sudden it's like one thing and quit. Like, you can go. We're done. So I was like, I saw that in real time, and I was like, that's crazy to put that amount of years, that amount of effort, that amount of love into your career, thinking that you're gonna have it forever, and all of a sudden it's gone because they're trying to play with you. Like, it didn't. It was weirdo behavior, but I was glad that I was able to see it. And I think now for me, you can't be in a place if you're not happy with it. Because your whole life is not about just work. Yeah, work is important. It helps you pay the bills. It helps you um, meet new people, learn new skills, but there's also the other side of being able to work towards your goals, whether they're physical, whether they're financial, whether they're emotional, whether they're relationships. There's a whole other aspect of goals that you got to hit. And if your life just revolves around work, the work can be taken away from you at any time. These companies ain't loyal, and you got to find places that are going to serve, that you're going to be able to serve, but they can serve you as well, and be able to pour into your cup, so your cup isn't empty all the time when you come home, so that you can serve your family or whoever you need, whoever you're with. So I think I think that's a good point that you bring up there.
Yeah, I think at least like now I think it's becoming more common, but I do like some of my friends like they be telling me how like their parents be like, you can't just do that. It's like, no, I'm leaving, like I don't care. I think it is like a newer generation thing, but I think it's a good thing because it kind of makes companies do more work to keep you and like incentivize you. Like it keeps them on their toes too.
You hope, you hope
I
it
hope
does.
some companies are
It's not
like, I'm
always the
not
case.
changing. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if
Yeah.
you have something that's worked for a long time. Why am I going to change this? Because one person decides to leave after this amount of time. Um, but you hope that it allows people to be reflect, like, why is this person leaving? What could I have done? You hope, but it's not always a guarantee.
unfortunately.
Hmm.
What's your next one?
Um, Mine is things are not often what they appear. When I was younger, I actually think someone got grown up in a Lambo, Ferrari, got 50 trillion pairs of shoes, like a new fit every day. I used to think like a big house, like you're balling, like you're chilling, but then you find out that some people aren't what they appear, and they might have this image of looking wealthy or looking rich, but they struggling on the day to day, whether it's internally, whether it's going back and forth with the image that they're trying to put out versus what's really happening in real life, or like on with their money decisions and how they're managing their money. Like you might not be as well off as people think you are. So I think I've just learned to take a closer look at what other qualities that people bring to the table. Like, are you always fond of your stuff, or do you have, how are you helping people? How are you, creating your wealth? Like, what do you put in how are you creating your wealth, or how are you like losing it? I think I'm just learning to pay more attention, and not everything is what it appears.
Yeah. Same. I think I learned that a little earlier, like in high school, because it was like high school going into college, because there was a lot of like I would see a lot of people who um how do I want to say this? I would see a lot of people who would have like the newest sneakers, nicest outfits and stuff. And then at the end of the day, there were certain things that they weren't like certain experiences they weren't able to afford. Like just priorities weren't in line, in my opinion. So like that made me see that just because somebody has like the newest sneakers, nicest car, stuff like that, like you don't really know what they did to acquire that. You don't know if they went into debt. And now that I know that a lot of times, like with social media, like you can post something on social media and it really not be true. I've seen people like spend $1,000 on a car rental for a day just to post pictures and give it back. Like now that I know the way that you can acquire some of these things, I don't really pay much attention to it. I'm
Hmm.
just like you never know. Like just because somebody drives a nice car, you don't know what it is like that they're doing or like if they're struggling to keep up with that image. So I don't really pay it too much mind anymore. I
Hmm.
think the more you know, the less you the less value you put into it, into stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
What's your
See?
third one? Hmm.
Oh. You don't have to continue relationships just because of history. And when I say relationships, that could be like a romantic relationship, that could be friendships. And I think a lot of times people keep other people in their life just because either they grew up together or uh, like they've been through a lot. But I think that there's certain times in your life where, despite the fact that you being with somebody for X amount of time or um, you guys growing up together, like there is a time where you could grow apart, and you don't have to continue holding on to a relationship just because of that. It's like it's okay to separate and do your own thing. And I
Yeah,
think
and I think
people
that's
struggle with
mm,
that, and that holds them back.
facts. Facts. I think there's been a couple instances for me where I'm used to like if you're in my circle, like you in there, and it's hard to like set boundaries on where is the line drawn, and if you keep demonstrating red flag behavior, like I think early on I was more prone to I would notice it, but I wouldn't like really address it, I would say. And then as I gotten older, it starts to be like, all right, well, this is starting to affect my relationship with this person, or is starting to affect other things besides just the interaction that me and this person have. And that's where I think the line has to be drawn of like, all right, you're taking away from, my well-being or how I'm functioning, and that cannot happen. So we got to set this line straight. And either if we decide we gotta separate, that's fine. But if we decide we're gonna make things work, then that's also an option too. But you can't be doing things that are taken away from, my mental well-being, or your maybe it's something that I'm doing that's taken away from your mental well-being. Like I gotta be okay with being able to accept that criticism also. So I think that's something that I've learned is more important, and you don't always got to be the nice one and be everyone's punching bag. But you got to be able to stand up and be able to voice how you're feeling and understand and explain why you're feeling that way. I think I don't know if you have to explain why, but for me, I feel like this is what I've noticed. This is how it's made me feel, and this is what I want to do moving forward, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, I think it depends on the situation if you give an explanation or not, but I think it's better to do that than to either act like it didn't happen, not address it, and just continue to remain in whatever situation just because. And I think at a certain
Hmm.
point, like you gotta value like other things other than just the history of time you have with somebody.
Hmm.
Like you gotta
Hmm.
value your peace of mind more than that.
Yeah, because like you can't just like let it simmer and like someone say something and then you upset for like
Yeah,
a day, 2 days, a week, or it's just something that you never forget. That's not healthy. You just keep it all in. So I
yeah,
think um, being able to address those things early and quit before it starts to simmer in terms of something that you don't want it to turn into.
agreed.
Um, my third one, ownership is the way to go. I used to think that, like home ownership is like watching my mom's like handle handle growing up as a single mom and making like the mortgage payment and grocery bills and um taking care of us. I thought it's a lot. And I was like, do I want to own a house? Like, there's a lot of responsibility. Like, if things break, you gotta fix it. Whereas if somebody, if I'm renting from somebody, then they're responsible for fixing it. That's one less stress I gotta worry about. But then you start to see what owning stuff, whether it's stocks, whether it's homes, what it can do for you in the present and down the line. Like if you own a house, you pay it off 30-year mortgage or whatever it may be, then you got something that you can pass down to the future generations. You got a place for your family to stay for a long time. And it could be an asset for your somebody down the line. Whereas, or if you decide to start investing in the stock market for your kids or for yourself at 18, you turn 59 and you got 3 mil in the bank just ready for you to do whatever you want. But it's because you got ownership of things and you're starting to make more calculated moves for your current and for your future down the line. So I think ownership is the new wave, and it's not something that I was really taught. It's not something that I think is taught to a lot of like minorities or black people in general. I think now we're starting to figure out that owning stuff is the way to go to build generational wealth for yourself and for your family down the line to continue your legacy. So I think that's something that's shifted big time for me in the last couple of years for sure.
Yeah, and I asked my mom the question that we're talking about what has changed, like what your perspective has changed since you like got more experience. And she said the whole home situation. And I agree that it is a lot of work, but if you view it, I think like the more I learn about business and learning like you can outsource certain services and not really have to deal with it on your own, I think that makes like owning a home a lot more appealing. Like, because as long as you have a like Rolodex of people, then you're good. You don't really need to do anything on your own. Like, so taking care of a house isn't as what's the word? Isn't as hectic as it seems if you can afford to do
Hmm.
that. And that's how I would like to do it.
Hmm.
So I think just the more I learn, the more possible things seem. Like it doesn't seem as hard, it
For
doesn't
sure.
seem as um far fetched.
Sure. Sometimes I think we put limits on what we think is possible, and then once you see someone else do it, you're like, oh. they only have this to start with. I could start there too. And then
Yeah.
as you start to learn more, you start to get exposed to people doing even bigger things. You're like, oh, I got this, kind of do this now. And you start to kind of branch out of what you thought was hard, branch out of the limits that you put on yourself that you thought was possible, and start to create bigger, better opportunities because you allowed yourself out of your comfort zone.
And it all comes back down to exposure, and also this point ties into my next one when you said that like home ownership or ownership in general isn't something that minorities or Black people were taught. I also think that uh, minorities and Black people aren't really taught about like the actual benefits of credit. I think people either know about credit and utilize it the wrong way, or people don't know about credit because they think it's bad. And because of that, like people think you have to like pay cash for everything. They see like rich people having certain assets and thinking that they paid in full for it, and not realizing that like real wealth is when you have like lines of credit and you're able to leverage it in a way that benefits you in the long run. Like you see like people buying houses, they're not paying $500,000 in cash for a house. Like people, rappers who have cars, they're not paying for cars in full. So
You hope not.
I think, yeah, I hope not. But for the most part, like people who are wealthy, they use credit. They don't spend their own money. Like, and I think that that is something that I had to like learn more or educate myself more about, because I would think that like certain I couldn't get certain things without like paying for it in full. But now I realize that credit is not actually a bad thing. You just have to learn how to use it in a way that allows you to have a bit more leverage. It's not really a bad thing unless you're using it senselessly.
Hmm. And I think it can give you perks that cash is not going to give you as long as you are on top of it and not behind on your payments on whatever you decide to purchase or invest in. It's like because I remember when I got my Chase card, and it funded a lot of my because I was moving to Boston, and once I hit the welcome offer, it funded a lot of the trips that I took for um that next year of me. I went to like Florida, I went to California, I went back to Alaska, I went back to Boston. Like it funded my all my trips um for that season I because I was able to take care of the meet the limit, but then be able to take care of the payments. And then once you start to see that once investors start to see that you can take care of your debt, then they are willing to give you more because I know if you give you more, you're going to be able to be responsible with it and take care of it. So I think it brings you things that, straight cash is not able to do unless you guys got unlimited amounts of cash. You can print cash at any time, but usually that's not the case. So I think, like you said, finding ways to leverage it is huge.
Yeah, and I think that uh like I felt like having cash was like something that was like really important, which yeah, having a certain amount of like cash on hand is important. But I think what's more important is having like lines of credit, because you've established that like reputation with whoever, like banks and stuff like that. So you have access to a lot more things. I think people who don't have credit are not as well off as people who do have lines of credit.
And it's probably a little easier too having it versus not having it, as long as you're responsible with it.
Yeah.
And then my next one, have a financial plan now and for the future. Um, I've me and financial plans. Although I've always been like, yeah, I'm gonna figure this thing out. I'm gonna make it work. Figure out how to make a whole bunch of money, and so I don't have to worry about paying back my loans, and I can, take care of my family, all that stuff. But I've never thought about like saving for the future. I've never thought about, what I want to do afterwards, after I'm done with work. Um, I think probably over the last year, I've seen the importance of having a budget, having a plan, and working towards goals. What I want to home ownership goals, financial goals, retirement goals. I never thought about that. I've always been just in the moment, get money in the moment, and then do something with it or spend it or whatever. I think now it's starting to be more calculated with, what is this going towards? How is it going to help me in the future? How do I leverage this for another opportunity that may come down the line? And why am I getting this? What is it going to do for me? How can I leverage this? So it's changed how I, you know, think about different situations, different opportunities, who I'm doing it for, who I want to help. I think it's having a plan or having a big goal that you want to accomplish has helped really focus in on how I'm gonna get there and the impact that I want it to have. So I think that's something that I wasn't thinking about early, but now for sure, as responsibilities increase and more people begin to get involved and people start to, look to you to be a problem solver, I think it's caused a big shift in how I move and how I'm thinking about things.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that like having that plan allows you to really, I guess, like get in tune with your goals because you can't obviously can't have the plan without knowing exactly what you want to strive for. But I think having that plan also gives you more clarity in your everyday decisions. Like it makes you step back and like move with more intention, move with more purpose as opposed to going through life aimlessly. So any type of
Hmm.
plan is really good to have. I'm so happy that I like put together something like some type of savings and investments because like yeah, I was like doing it on my own, but I didn't know what I was doing, and I also wasn't doing as good enough of a job as I thought I was. So I think the plan kind of like helps you like move with more purpose and do things more efficiently.
Hmm. Facts. Facts.
Want me to say another one? All right, last one. You will make a lot of money in healthcare. So growing up, I wanted to be, I wanted to do something in the medical field. I don't know if I was gonna be like a doctor, nurse, or something, but I thought that like if you worked in healthcare, you'll make a lot of money. And being a physical therapist, obviously you don't make that much money. Like nurses make more, doctors make more, PAs make more. But even then, it's not as much money as it should be for all those professions. And I think that that's still like a common misconception. Like people think you work in healthcare, so you make a lot of money. But because I have a business and stuff, I think of things differently. I don't really think the field matters. It's just more so how you help people, like what problems you solve. That is what gives you the money. And I didn't know that before. I kind of went into like healthcare thinking I was gonna make a certain amount, and then now as you're making money, you realize it's not that much, and then you also look at what other people are making, and you realize that if the type of problems they solve and how they solve it change, they might be able to make more money.
Hmm. Hmm.
I didn't know that
Yeah,
before.
same. I think also I grew up. It was like go to the fields that are the most stable, where you're always gonna have a job, because it seemed like the engineer, lawyer, doctor track, you need them at all times. So you're always gonna have a job. So I used to think, all right, if everyone needs them, then those have to be the highest paying jobs. And then, once you get in it, you're like, oh, like it's really bad out here. It's really that's at least for PT. I speak for PT. Um, but like you said, I think learning how you can leverage the skill set and how scarce of a market it is for PTs to like venture out into their own side businesses or other ways you can leverage the information that you learn to help other people. I think that's where you can make a lot of your income, a lot of your big moves. Just based on like you said, the problems that you solve, the people that you're able to meet, and who they're able to connect you with to be able to help more people. As long as you bring forward a good solution, you're genuine, you're yourself. Think it can allow you to create more possibilities that you might not have thought was possible if you stuck in the traditional healthcare system.
Yeah. Um, so you can make a lot of money in healthcare. It just depends on how you go about doing it. But
Mhm.
traditional healthcare, what I thought, you don't make as much money as what you would think, unfortunately.
Mhm.
But I think that's a result of a couple things like the system, insurances, things like that.
But I think that's something that will also change over the years as people start to understand what is possible, and people get tired of not being able to live after off of getting a debt to income ratio of three times worth what they went into school for. So um I think as more people get into it and they understand, see how hard it is to make ends meet, especially as prices are going up every day, it seems like, then I think you'll start to see more people start to utilize their skill sets a little differently and make be able to help more people in innovative ways.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to like all these things come down to exposure. So like the more we're exposed to, the more we learned, the more our perspectives change for the better. So I think that's a common theme on our podcast, like knowledge uh, and exposure, and implementing that in ways that um, kind of benefit you and also the people you serve.
I got nothing else. That was a good way to end
Nothing
it.
else. All
Mm-mm.
right. So if you guys are listening to this, feel free to tag us in any social media and let us know exactly what your perspectives were and how they have changed over time. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.
Later.